Hi, and welcome to another update video. This one's mainly going to focus on some Blu-rays that I recently purchased, and I got a lot of money from Amazon for Christmas, and I figured, okay, well, I might as well use it on some stuff that I really like and some movies that I've always wanted to own on Blu-ray or just never even had on DVD before. And so I'm just going to run through all of these and tell you what I think about each one of them briefly. So the first movie I have here is The Great Escape. Amazing Steve McQueen movie. This movie is 3 hours long, but I'm never bored for 1 second of it. It's just thrilling. It's a war movie without battles, which is really interesting when you think about it. It all takes place basically in a concentration camp, and Steve McQueen, James Garner, Richard Attenborough, and a few other pretty well-known actors from the 60s all star in this movie, and they are trying to escape this concentration camp that's supposedly unescapable according to the Nazis. And one of the things I really like about this movie is the build-up and the tension that they are able to carry for 3 hours of the movie. Because the first 2.5 hours, they're really the first 2 hours and 15 minutes of this movie, I would say, are all in the camp and preparing for the escape. And, you know, I don't want to spoil anything, but one of the ways that they try to escape is through digging tunnels, cutting through barbed wire, distracting guards, and jumping into trucks that are like leaving the complex. There's a lot of different methods that they try, but you know, just the relationships that are built during those first 2 hours and 15 minutes really make this movie great in the end. When I don't want to spoil it, but obviously on the cover you could see Steve McQueen on a motorcycle. If you've heard of this movie, you probably know that you know, that's one of the hallmarks of this movie is the motorcycle chase with Steve McQueen. Now, that did not happen in real life, but almost everything else in this movie is very historically accurate. I've watched documentaries where veterans have said that it was so true to what actually happened in the camp, minus having Americans. There were no Americans in the camp, so having James Garner and Steve McQueen there, it doesn't take away from the historical accuracy, really, because you have to have a couple of American actors because America was involved in this war, and there were American POWs, just not in this camp, but during the war there were. I mean, so it's really rich in character and tension, and if you haven't seen this, it came out in 1963, so maybe you haven't seen this. Definitely check it out. I don't personally really like war movies, but I love this movie because it's not about war. It's about like just escaping and, you know, rebellion and, you know, forming partnerships with people that you may not necessarily agree with. So yeah, definitely check it out. Great movie. Next is the Da Vinci Code, the extended cut. I talked about it in one of my last videos. I really like this movie. I know a lot of people don't, but and the extended cut, it's so much, it definitely adds more to the movie. There's more scenes of character development. There's a couple more scenes that add in backstory for a few characters, particularly Silas, who plays the monk in the movie. He's given a little bit more of a backstory, which is nice. And it ties up the loose ends a little bit more in, you know, towards the end of the movie. But not only that, I mean, the movie itself, people say the pacing is really bad, but I think with the longer version, which it runs at pretty much, I think it's almost 3 hours, this extended cut. It's about 2 hours and 50 minutes. It's really, it doesn't actually slow the movie down adding these extra 20, 25 minutes because it keeps you enthralled. And you know, a few critics like Roger Ebert and Richard Roeper, they both really gave this film good reviews, and there are people out there that like this movie. I've acknowledged the historical inaccuracies of this movie and how it has nothing to do with what actually happened in history. I just think it's a great thriller and a great mystery, and I like movies that are kind of about like treasure hunts and things like that. So and puzzles and codes. So definitely, if you haven't seen this, check it out. Looks really great on Blu-ray. It was the first time I had ever seen it on Blu-ray when I purchased it, and it looked really phenomenal. I believe the cinematographer was, let's see here, Salvatore Totino. It's very dark cinematography, and Ron Howard. I noticed that when I was watching this again, Ron Howard's directing. There's a lot of cuts to what people are thinking about in this movie, very similar to Christopher Nolan. Now, this came out after Christopher Nolan really started with his movies. This came out in 2006, so Nolan had already made The Prestige, Memento, Insomnia, Batman Begins following, so it feels like Ron Howard was influenced in some ways by Nolan because he uses a lot of quick jump cuts to what people's thought processes are from an image perspective. And that's what Christopher Nolan does in every one of his movies. So I just noticed that comparison for the first time, actually, and I'm like, oh, I wonder if he was influenced by Nolan. Not sure if it was a conscious decision, but it worked for this movie. And my next is the Indiana Jones, The Complete Adventures. I've never owned these movies on DVD or any VHS, any format, but I've always wanted to because I'd seen them all on TV. Never really, though, the full movies. I'd seen the first one, Raiders of the Lost Ark. I had seen that full movie, and I saw Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, unfortunately, in theaters, the full movie. But I had never seen Temple of Doom or The Last Crusade, the full movie all the way through, without commercials and editing for content on TV and all that other stuff. So this was great to get, and this is an amazing set. They did a great job with this. If you just look at the artwork here, and you see like that, each movie has like its own page, which is really cool with artwork of like the villains and the supporting characters. And then there's a bonus disc as well with all the behind-the-scenes stuff, which I haven't even gotten to yet. But, you know, watching all these movies, I'd have to say that I think that I like The Last Crusade the best. Even though everybody says the original is the best, I really liked The Last Crusade with Sean Connery playing Indy's father. That was a great father-son relationship during that movie, and it really elevated it. Now, and I really like Temple of Doom. A lot of people knock on it as like not as good as the others, but Temple of Doom is dark, and it's a complete departure from the rest of the series. But that's why I like it, is because they took that risk. After Raiders, you know, you could tell Spielberg and Lucas, they were going through a bad period in their life. They didn't want to make the exact same movie, so they said, let's just make something completely different. And it's a really dark movie about like black magic and voodoo, and like voodoo and a bunch of other crazy things. And they're not necessarily seeking a treasure in that movie. Like, I mean, actually, no, I take that back. He is seeking some stones from this temple, but other than that, though, and Raiders obviously is really great. The only movie I don't really like of the whole series is Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And, I mean, I pretty much agree with the general consensus out there that it feels artificial. It doesn't feel like a real Indiana Jones movie. There's too much CG. It didn't use practical effects enough like the other films did. And it just felt off. And I didn't like a few of the characters, like the main villain, Shia LaBeouf's character. There was a few that I just don't really care for. But anyway, I had to have the full series just because, again, I love the first three movies. I might as well just have the whole set. It comes in this nice packaging, so why not? And it looks good on the shelf, so why not? Next is the Big Lebowski. This is a steelbook, actually, that I found on Amazon, and I was like, look at that, with the white Russian and a bowling alley, the bowling alley markers. That's so cool. I just thought, I've never seen a cover like this before for this movie, and I kind of want to get this. I don't typically buy steelbooks, but the ones I have bought, it's mainly because I like the cover, and it's like, oh, that looks really cool. And the inside of it is pretty normal. It's just you know, and then that's the back of it with the. I haven't taken the cover off yet, but anyway, it's a really great looking steelbook. I paid a little bit more for it than I would have if I bought the generic Blu-ray, but I think it was worth it because I don't know if it'll be around forever. Maybe this will become a collector's item one day. But anyways, I think it looks really great on Blu-ray. This is one of the funniest movies ever made. So quotable. You know, you could quote every line from this movie pretty much, and it still is funny to this day. Next is a double feature, two spaghetti westerns, Keoma and The Grand Duel, starring the great Lee Van Cleef. Spaghetti westerns, I really got into these after Quentin Tarantino said that they influenced him in his movies, and I'm like, huh, well, if he was influenced by some movies, I kind of want to check those out and see what they're like. I've gone through a lot of spaghetti westerns, and you know, basically the ones with Lee Van Cleef and Franco Nero are definitely some of the best ones out there. So I highly recommend you check any of those movies out. And these two especially. The reason I got this Blu-ray was, number one, you got two movies for... This was only like $3.99 on Amazon. You can't beat that. Two quality Blu-rays and for two spaghetti westerns that I really liked. And Keoma was made a lot later. Most of the spaghetti westerns were made in the late the late 60s, early 70s. Keoma was made a few years later, and it was kind of the last of the great spaghetti westerns. A lot of people regard it as that, but and it feels very modern, that movie. The action sequences and the cinematography, it was ahead of its time, really. It feels like it could have been made today. The picture quality is amazing, and the grand duel. The great thing about the grand duel is just it's the relationship between Lee Van Cleef and a young protege, and that's a hallmark of the spaghetti western genre, is the mentor and the protege relationship within the West, and usually it demythicizes the West, if that makes sense. So anyways, great, great pickup for those two. Next is A Serious Man. I really like this movie. For a Coen Brothers movie, it's really low budget, and it's like they went back to film school making this movie, because you can tell that they didn't have a lot of money, resources, but it's so funny and so original, this movie, and it's very ambiguous. The beginning and the ending of this movie it's very ambiguous. You can't really you don't know what to make of it. It has that abrupt Coen Brothers ending that a lot of their movies have, and a lot of people dislike, but I really like, because it kind of leaves it open to interpretation by the viewer how you think these characters ended up. I mean, the guy who plays the main character, Michael Stuhlbarg, this was his breakout role. He is so great in this movie. I cannot believe he did not at least get an Oscar nomination, because he is so perfect as this like clueless mathematician, and basically watching his life unravel around him. Definitely check this out if you haven't seen it yet. I still haven't watched it, but it's in the packaging. I've seen it many times before, though. I just never owned the movie, but I'm glad I finally do now. Now we're going to get into something completely different from the Coen Brothers. Alice in Wonderland and The Great Mouse Detective, two Disney movies that I've always wanted to own and I really enjoy. Alice in Wonderland I kind of recently discovered, because I didn't really... I always wanted to see it because everybody said it's like a really trippy Disney movie, and it is, but it also has great animation. And it's very faithful to the Lewis Carroll story from what I've been told. So definitely check both these movies out. And this has a Great Mouse Detective has a great voice performance from the late Vincent Price. I mean, he plays the villain in this movie, and it's amazing. It's so much fun to watch. Anyways, check both of these out before they go back into the Disney vault. Next, I got X-Men Days of Future Past and X-Men First Class. These is the first two of what's going to become Bryan Singer's trilogy of the new X-Men characters. Now, obviously, X-Men, this is the Rogue cut, so I'm excited to watch this. Haven't seen it yet, but I'm excited to see what they add in with her character, because I really liked the movie in theaters, but I was a little disappointed that she wasn't included in the movie, so I'm excited to see what they do with it. And last but not least, The Treasure of Sierra Madre. This is one of the greatest westerns ever made. It influenced Paul Thomas Anderson's There Will Be Blood. It's definitely regarded as a great American film, because it is about America. This movie is about like greed and temptation and violence, and it's a powerful gleam into like just the looking of what drives these men, and anyway, I don't want to spoil the plot really, but it's just a great performance by Humphrey Bogart. It is in black and white, obviously, but that doesn't detract from it. I think it actually adds to it. So definitely check this out. It's a great older movie. And that's pretty much it. Lots of Blu-rays. I still haven't watched a lot of these or opened them up yet, but I'm looking forward to it. So thanks for watching.